Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning, from me by me, Peter Gibbler, and him, Dave Wheeler. Morning, Dave. How are you doing?
Him is fine, thank you.
Sorry.
Him is fine, thank you.
Yeah.
And him,
Okay.
David.
All right. I want to go over a couple of things. Before we get onto the main bulk of our show. There's been a number of rumors, and I'll call them that. People are showing headlines on Facebook, and I know, hey, these headlines are mostly fake and faked up, showing that Canada expelled the US ambassador. And as far as I can tell, I can find no normal press confirmation that actually happened.
That's a major news item. It would be all over the press if anything will help happen.
Yeah.
They couldn't. Yeah. That is very unlikely. Extremely unlikely.
I would say even if we were at major odds, and we know that we're at a lot of odds with the United States over a lot of stuff, I would say that is extremely unlikely as well. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to discuss is this question about Crown Royal. Now, if Diageo wanted to move Crown Royal, move liquor from Crown Royal to the US, it could have done so without attracting the ire of Doug Ford. Because I've been thinking about this over the last 24 hours, because with major corporations like this, I'll give one example. Back in the 80s, there was an article published in London in the Financial Times by a left-wing economist. And basically, for months, there'd been argument between Ford and the Ford unions about the workers going out on strike, and Ford basically saying, "Oh, Ford in the UK is in a precarious financial situation," and by saying that, they were causing the strike to be delayed. And what happened is this left-wing economist who was a lecturer at the LSE basically debunked Ford's idea, because he basically proved that Ford was not in financial difficulty in England. And he further said that basically, when it comes down to anything like finances, when it's a global corporation, you can say, any company can say, "Oh, my Canadian brand, Canadian wing is not profitable right now." They just do it by moving finances, and you and I would never know about it. But this individual basically proved that Ford was not in financial trouble. So essentially, the same could happen here. Diageo can move liquor and move. It's harder to move. It's much easier to move money than it is to move product. I agree, but Diageo could move product, and this would never be known to the Ontario government had they decided to.
No, that doesn't work here because of what you already said. You can move money electronically here and there, but you cannot move barrels of whiskey without being noticed. You cannot take barrels of whiskey, take them to a bottling plant, and then take the finished product and put it on the shelves. You can't do that without being noticed. And if you take your bottling plant away, which Crown Royal wants to do, it wants to take its bottling plant and put it into the US, so it cannot claim that Crown Royal comes from anywhere but Canada.
Yeah.
So if it could, it would take Crown Royal and, like I said yesterday, and put it in India someplace and make it really cheap and then sell it. But it can't do that.
You could make Crown Royal anywhere by just moving the product, moving the ingredients, and making it.
Well, it's like saying Scotch whiskey is not from Scotland. It's like saying Irish whiskey is not from Ireland. Now, if you look at the biggest selling brands in the United States, and of course it's Jack Daniels, and it's Jim Beam's a close second, and right up there is Crown Royal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crown Royal is among the highest selling liquors in the United States. So they could make the argument logistically, it makes much more sense for us to put a bottling plant in the U.S. We can tap this market easier. That could be their claim.
Yeah.
What Ford isn't buying and what the union is buying is that necessary? Is it necessary to lose 200 jobs here in Ontario to make
Well, yeah, but okay. So
Diego,
if Crown,
whatever their name is, Diego, more solvent?
yeah,
Or more
but
profit.
again, had it been done 10 years ago, let's say, by Crown, they basically just shipped the product across to a bottling plant in the US 10 years ago. The union may well have cried foul 10 years ago, but would have been a proven fact by now, right?
Well, let's put it this way. In the Scotch whiskey we have come to Canada is usually bottled in Canada or in North America, because when Scotch whiskey came from Scotland or Irish whiskey came from Ireland, it was inconvenient to put them into glass bottles. That added a lot of weight to the transport and a lot of bulk.
Yeah.
And so nowadays it might be easily bottled in Scotland or in Ireland and then shipped. But back in the day, it all came over in barrels and it was bottled over here.
Yeah.
I know this because I remember reading about how much Scotch whiskey actually costs without all the government levies on top of it. And that was back in, I think it was the 70s or the 80s, I remember.
Well, that makes a great deal of sense, because in fact, actually, it's cheaper to, as you say, it's more cost effective to move bulk product than it is to move. And they can take them from the casks and put them into plastic containers so they're leak proof.
I suppose so. But nowadays, because of container shipping, you may be able to bottle it in the country of origin, and it still might just be as easily done. But in any case, so to take the product and bottle it where you get it from, that's pretty natural. Also, to take product and package it here. For instance, you get cashew nuts from Brazil, you bring them to Ontario, you might package them here.
Yeah.
So, but you buy them in bulk. So the bottling of a volume thing like that is pretty common. But I'm pretty sure that if you told Jack Daniels that if you're going to take their product and not bottle it in the U.S. and bring it up here and bottle it, I'm sure you'd have the same problem down there. The workers at the Jack Daniel bottling plant would be much put out by such a thing. Now, I don't think they've made the case, Diego or the company, Diageo.
Yeah.
Every time I see it, I think Diego, but anyway.
No, it's
Diageo.
Yeah. It's a Gaelic name, apparently. The thing is, I learned about this a long time ago, because back in the late 80s, I actually, well, it's funnily enough, they actually did a lot merger with a lot of the UK and European distilling and brewing houses, and actually got offered a job with Diageo in London. And one of the questions was, because I had the same issue about how do you pronounce it, and that was one of the questions I asked when I first went to the interview, because I don't want to mispronounce this product, the company name. How do I correctly pronounce it? Right. And apparently it comes from Irish Gaelic somewhere.
Oh, so it's not Diego, it's Diego.
Diageo.
Okay.
The I-O at the end it matters.
Right. All I can think of is like Irish Spanish guy. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, okay. All right. Anyway, so
Zorro with a D on him instead of a Z. But so basically, yeah, I don't think they've made their case that they have to change it. Remember, these are big conglomerates. They don't think of people. I'm sure they have somebody that has their public relations people in mind that will tell them, look, you want to keep a good public image. So, don't bring in, you can bottle this easier if you brought in temporary foreign workers, but don't do that. That will do something to your brand. Every alcohol brand should make a very good note of what happened to Bud Light when they took their base for granted and tried to change their approach of selling beer. They lost that market completely. So Bud Light is never recovered and never will recover its place at the top of the heap. So any public relations department has to keep its eye out on something that will put the brand in bad eyes with the public.
Absolutely.
But obviously they don't care that they're obviously they're making decisions, and they're making decisions think, well, this will go away. Eventually Doug Ford will let our product go back up on the shelves in Ontario. But right now, their biggest market, of course, is the United States, where they sell huge down there. And
I tried Crown Royal, and I have to say, as a product, I don't like it. It's a poor whiskey.
Well, I think it's a very good whiskey, as a matter of fact, my own self. But
but again, I'm comparing it to single malt Scotch whiskey that I like. I also compare it to some rye brands from America that I also like, but I have particular tastes in that regard, and Crown Royal doesn't meet that criteria, right?
Well, I'm not I don't like Scotch at all, except one or two brands, Redbreast and Akatoshan. I'll like those, but most Scotches I don't like at all. You can give me the finest Scotch on the planet, and I'll take an ordinary rye over top of it. So so it's a matter of taste, really.
And you see, I'm the other way around. I do not like Irish. I find the Irish whiskey. Sorry, Justin. I find the Irish whiskey poor taste. There was a couple. Jameson's okay, but okay, right?
Jameson is a good standard whiskey. It's a good standard whiskey.
Anyway, moving on. So just put those out through there. Moving on. So next stop, Nuuk. And just in case you didn't know where Nuuk is the capital of Greenland. Now Trump is looking at targeting Greenland, according to the statement, which is given a lot of concern by both the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and the Greenland Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen, and Greenland as an autonomous region of Denmark, basically saying when the President of the United States talks about we need Greenland and connects us with Venezuela and military intervention, it's not just wrong, it's disrespectful, and our country is not an object of superpower rhetoric. We're a people, a land, and a democracy. This has to be respected, especially by close and loyal friends.
It's very interesting. This morning, I listened to an interview with the opposition leader in Greenland, and he is decrying what the press has done to this. He says that nobody is listening. The arguments are happening on Facebook and in the press, and I'm trying to listen to exactly what Trump is saying. And he is saying he hasn't said that he's going to annex it. He says he needs it. It's a requirement for the defense. And they want to talk to us. He sounded very naive, to tell you the truth. But on the other hand, he is right about the press. The press will, you have to do a lot of.
I agree.
You had to do a lot of your own digging to get to the real issue.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we don't even, half the time, a lot of the stuff you give us a story that we're discussing, and I'm looking at other sources for the same info nowadays.
Yeah, it's well, in the States, it's very clear. like stupid left or stupid right. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Hey, what side of stupid are you on? I'm on the left side of stupid. What side of stupid do you listen to? I'm on the right side of stupid. I listen to Fox. I'm really stupid. I'm thick as a brick. And how about you? Oh, CNN. I pretend I'm smart, but I'm stupid, because I believe what they're saying.
And in all honesty, to be quite honest, most Americans need to go listen to the European press, I think, more than the American press.
Yeah, it's always nice to look the outside looking in. Al Jazeera is a good source. I'm telling you. People say, it's Arabs, it's Arabs, it's Muslims. But Al Jazeera is a very good source of news.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing is also, I would say The Guardian is also becoming a very good source. The Guardian, which is a newspaper in England, that when I lived in England, I used to laugh about The Guardian, how bad they were. But internationally, they're becoming a very good source. How many times you've put an article up on Al Jazeera, and just at the same time, I was about to give you an article from The Guardian.
Yeah. And so from the outside looking in is very good.
Yeah.
Even the BBC as many problems as it's had lately, and it's really pissed me off a lot of times.
Yeah.
There still is a good solid core of international news in there. So you have to search it out. They messed up big time with, and anyway, aside from that, so the opposition leader in Greenland said, well, let's start talking. We may have a couple of things we need. The U.S. needs the defense aspect of Greenland. We need our independence. Maybe we could come to an agreement. But he doesn't seem to understand what Trump is actually saying, is talking about annexation. And he is saying maybe that's just his talking points for now. But if we can get our independence, if we can get rid of Denmark and we can be completely independent, and maybe we can make some kind of deal with the U.S. He sounds, when he was speaking, he sounded completely naive. But as I said before, he is pointing out that you can't really get the true picture out of the press so easily when they're making such a big deal about it. He says, listen to exactly what the president said. When given what Miller has said and about needing Greenland because the world is nothing but a place where power means everything. The other thing, we need Greenland, so we'll take it if we need it. He said, "Well, he's not the president, is he?" But he is the president advisor. So he had all kinds of answers to the interviewer that seemed reasonable, but from my point of view, it seemed naive.
Yeah. The other question about this, of course, is that the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, has basically been saying that, and this has been repeated in Europe, of course, is that after Maduro's capture, Trump doubled down on the idea, telling reporters aboard Air Force One that we need Greenland from a standpoint of national security, and Denmark is not going to be able to do it. I can tell you that's what was reputedly said. And this, of course, is a worrying factor across the whole of Europe, and especially European the European members of NATO, because at the moment the question and whole Facebook in the last 48 hours has been awash with questions about Article 5 and what that means. And there's a lot of people who don't seem to understand the basic NATO Article 5 and what that actually means. And that essentially what Frederiksen has been saying is that could be the end of NATO.
Europeans are in a really, really tough situation. They're being attacked. Well, Ukraine is being attacked, but Russia remains a threat to all the European nations on its border. Yeah, and NATO needs the United States. NATO was dependent on the United States from its very, very creation. Yep. Trump is turning his back on NATO, and then Trump's saying, "Look, I want Greenland too bad. If I have to take it from my own NATO ally, I'm going to take it from out. That's what he seems to be saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And NATO is saying that's like attacking a NATO country attacking another NATO country. What are you doing?
Yeah, and Article 5 kicks it. Article 5 kicks in, but the whole of NATO comes therefore up to question.
Yeah, because obviously none of the NATO countries are going to attack the U.S. They may put up resistance, they might do something, but right now, President Trump is sees it like he's an expansionist imperialist, basically, and he says, what choice are they going to have? They depend on us economically. They depend on us defensively. We have built ourselves up to the point where we can do anything we damn well please, and there's nothing they can do about it. And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
He went into Venezuela. He went into Venezuela, and he took out the leader. Nobody could do anything about it. In that particular case, nobody's crying too many tears for Maduro, but he said he's going to go in and do it, and he says now he's going to take over the oil fields, and he's going to produce 50, 60 million barrels a day or some darn thing, and that's going to go right into the U.S. coffers. He's made no attempt to get democracy back established in Venezuela. He doesn't care anything except about the oil.
Yeah,
and that's what he keeps touting.
But he also
going to agree, and he just says, "I'm going in there," and what everybody expected him, like, okay, so you're going to take Maduro out, and now you're going to help establish a democratic government there. No, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if Delcy Rodriguez stays there as long as she does what he tells her to do.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Greenland. He doesn't care about the treaties that they've signed. He doesn't care. If I want it, I'm going to take it.
Yeah. The other thing he said, you see, he's basically making the statement of they can add one more dog sled, one more armed person and a dog sled, and it is no match for these Russian and Chinese ships. True, but again, you're talking about you could sign up every single Greenlander to the armed forces, and it's still no match for Russian and Chinese ships if the Russian and Chinese decided to stake a claim there.
They're not, because what everybody keeps forgetting about this, and what the U.S. really isn't saying, although everyone else is, that Denmark and the United States have defense agreements signed long ago.
Yes.
That NATO and the United States have defense agreements regarding Greenland that are decades old. The United States has military bases on Greenland that it has actually reduced in size over the years. It has defense and naval and Air Force base there that it can expand at will. It is okay with Denmark. It is okay with the Greenlanders for the Americans to expand their defense bases as much as they want, because Denmark, the people of Greenland, want the United States to help them defend the area if that happens to be the thing. With Denmark being a NATO ally, is compliant with the United States and allowed them to put a big, huge military base there. And so there is no real reason. And then Trump himself says, "Oh, well," in the very first part, when he wanted to go and get Greenland, "Oh, we need their minerals. We need their minerals." But now he's changed his mind on that. He's saying the opposite. He said, "We don't need their minerals anymore, but we need them for defense." So his arguments were shot down about the minerals because all the Greenlanders said was, "You come and get as many minerals as you want, mine as much as you want."
Yeah,
Canada's already there mining, so that argument didn't work. So now he's back to the defense one, and that's not working either because the Danes and NATO have cooperated with the United States.
Actually, it's not just Denmark and NATO. It's not just Denmark and NATO. Denmark has, prior to NATO, long-term relationships with the United States that start right after the Second World War, because basically
Yeah.
one of these and most of these European nations, like Denmark, came to the viewpoint that they could never again be the subjugated by any other European superpower like Germany, as they were during the course of the Nazi regime. They So therefore they made alliances with Denmark before NATO was introduced, and NATO was what, it's 19 sometime point in the 1950s when NATO's articles were created.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So everything that Trump is talking about is already there. And as a matter of fact, I think Denmark did not allow China to come in to do something they wanted to do.
Absolutely.
Whatever. But the very fact of the matter is the United States has as much capability as it ever needed for defense. It has the ability to go in there and get any kind of minerals it wants. If it wants to develop them, it can. Denmark and the people of Greenland are wide open to all of that. So it makes absolutely no sense that the U.S. has to annex Greenland. It would be a very bad mistake for the U.S. to do that. If you take a guy like Miller, who is saying, well, the problem here is we have to be completely assured of this because the world is made up of blood and iron, basically. Whoever's got the biggest sticks wins. And so we're going to take it before China and Russia do. Well, China and Russia will never take it. Who's going to let them take it?
Yeah.
As soon as like if they have a gigantic American military base on it, are the Chinese going to come and take Greenland?
Yeah. All right. Absolutely. All right. Moving on. So what's the weather going to be looking like over the next 3 months? According to Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, they're predicting it to be warmer than normal. All right, 2 to 6 degrees warmer than normal in southern Ontario.
Yeah, well, it sure looks like that right now, doesn't it?
I'm not so sure. I disagree. I think it feels colder than normal. We've had more snow since we've had snow regularly since November, and in my time here in the Niagara region, we typically, we get downfalls in November, but they're normally gone in day. It normally warms up and melts in days. Yes, we had a lot of rain yesterday, which melted a lot of the snow. I don't know. Yeah, there's still snow on top of the truck parked outside my window here. So it didn't melt all the snow. Right. So I think we're going to be getting, I think we've already gotten more snow than normal, and I think we're still going to get more.
Oh, we might get a fair amount of snow, but what they're saying though is the temperature is going to be warmer. That doesn't mean we're going to get less snow. As a matter of fact, warmer temperatures might mean we get more snow because the lake temperatures are warmer, and when cold air goes over them, they'll pick up more moisture and drop it off.
Fair.
So that could be possibly, but the beginning of this winter was more like the winters of my youth, the ones I remember.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid living in Scarborough, we had snow in November and December. We were more likely to get a white Christmas back in those days. January was always full of snow from beginning to end. Kind of, we had what was called the January thaw, where things melted for a couple of weeks in January, and then February was a completely winter month, top to bottom. So, but typically speaking, what they're saying is our temperatures will be 2 degrees warmer than normal from this point going forward. And by the looks of it, all the snow is pretty much melted now. It's just being rain and slush and rain and slush. We may get a little bit more ice rain, freezing rain coming up in a few days from now. But in the meantime, everything looks like it's just going to melt away. it's going to be one big puddle of water. And going forward in the wintertime, it looks as if it's going to be, the temperatures are going to be higher. So even if we do get snow, it's going to melt away. Yeah, we may be looking at a fairly mild winter.
Well, remember, I've never experienced the blizzard of '77, right? Which cuts to the heart of many Niagarans.
Yeah, I was stuck several miles from here up on Thorlestone Road, near Garner Road. That's where I was stuck, Thorlestone and Garner. And I got into a house that was close by there, and then I got evacuated to a little store on Montrose Road, and then I got evacuated there to another house partway down Thorlestone Road, and then somewhere around 2 o'clock, a big construction truck with very tall wheels. One of the girls I was with, well, we were all coming back from St. Catharines, and a whole group of us ended up being together. You know, like a bunch of people jumped into my car because they ran out of gas, and my car had gas, and I still had the heater going.
Yeah.
Before we evacuated to a house. And anyway, so this same group came in, and one of the group was a girl whose father owned a construction company, and he was able to send out a big truck with really tall wheels to go through the snow to come and get us. And they were able to drop me off close to home, close enough for me to trudge through the snow to get to my house.
Yeah, but you see, so
2 o'clock in the morning.
The chances of one of those coming back, I agree, are probably less today than at that time, right?
Very, very rare. It was a very rare situation, but it was a unique thing, and we're still going to get blizzards in February. But the trend here is that the winter's going to be mild. What they're saying now is the winter's going to be much milder than normal, 2 degrees more mild from this point on. So we're going to get a much more mild January than we're used to, and a much more mild February than we're used to. It's not good. It's not saying we won't get snow, but we did have a cold spell there, and I thought that was going to be a harbinger to a colder winter, one that I was used to as a youth. When I was a kid growing up, we had colder winters and we had more snow, but it doesn't seem to be holding out. So we're going to be looking at a fairly mild winter going forward, and that's what that's what they predict. But they haven't always been right, have they?
Yeah. Well, and again, let's be honest about it. The weatherman's probably right less than 30% of the time.
Yeah, it's the only job on earth you could be wrong most of the time and still get paid.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Oh dear, I've got myself completely frozen here. Moving on, government's changes a factor in municipal elections, right? Governance changes are a factor in municipal elections. Several councillors are saying that they want clarity on whether governance reform is coming before the October municipal election.
Yeah, so there's been only two councillors who have committed to running again in the election in 2026. Are you still there? Are you still there? I can't see you. Oh, I think I'm not on. It says I'm live, but I don't know if I am live or not. So for anyone that's out there, I'm going to have to go off and come back on so I don't lose where Peter is.
Okay.
Well, I'm still here, so I'll continue on.
I'm here, Dave. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but I couldn't hear
Yeah,
you before. That's why I
yeah.
clicked off and came back on.
I can't be seen, but for whatever reason, I'm here. Yeah,
Peter cannot be seen. Sounds
yeah,
like the Monty Python skit. Peter cannot be seen.
yeah.
I don't know if you remember
Well,
that one. That was hilarious.
yeah,
Anyway, um, oh, there it is. Oh my eyes. Oh, what happened? Oh, you came back on.
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so all right. So
well,
anyway, there's will be two of the councillors that committed to re-election, and that's Ruth Ann Newstag and Lori Lococo.
yeah,
The other ones are, I don't know if they're playing coy or they're actually just waiting to see in reality what the new governances are going to be for the Niagara region.
yeah,
So things are not clear about how the province is going to treat the governing of the Niagara region. And as we've known before, there was all kinds of talk about amalgamating all the 12 municipalities and making 4 major municipalities groups, and then make the regional government out of them. How much
yeah,
regional government do we need? The regional government has already downloaded a lot of its planning to the cities themselves. They're talking about taking the mayors as being the only elected officials in a regional government. There's all kinds of noise about this, and yet it's never very clear to me what exactly they're talking about. Is it to you? Do
no.
you?
In fact, actually, about 8 years ago, we talked. Actually, about 7 years ago, we talked about governance change, and there was 2 options out there, and then of course Doug Ford backed down on that governance change at that particular time, and realistically, it has been the subject of rumor ever since. So every probably 9 months, somebody in either one of the cities of Niagara or the regional council has mentioned about governance change, and has asked the question about what Doug Ford's intentions are in regard to that, and how their particular municipality needs to do something about it, and this has been a constant discussion, and realistically, if it does happen, it'll happen. And the way I look at it is, if you're intending to stand for city council and you put your money up, and even if they do decide to change how the municipalities are elected, or even if they are elected, those individuals will get their money back anyway.
Yeah, so I don't think it has anything to do with all of the money. And
No, it does.
I think I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any consequence for any of the leaders now, or the councillors now, to put up their hand and say, yeah, if things are the same, I'm gonna be elected.
Yeah.
I'm going as a councillor. So I don't think there's any consequence for them to actually lay down their cards now. This idea that they don't know what's going forward, what's going to happen, who knows?
Yeah.
Why they're saying that? Are they really worried about that, or are they just not ready to get involved in campaigning yet? Because as soon as you say, okay, I'm up for re-election, you're going to get all kinds of questions about your campaign. What is your campaign? What's the focus of your campaign? Blah blah blah. So everybody could just say, well, I haven't made a decision yet, so that you don't bug me about that right now.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, of course, is that there wasn't a city council meeting which Wayne Thompson attended where he didn't state that he was up for election because he'd proudly make this speech at the end. So the city would be talking about a subject and he'd mumble on about how he'd been talking to city residents about this development and how great it was for the city of Niagara Falls. That wasn't necessarily necessary to get the development approved. That was chest thumping. That was Wayne Thompson saying, come on, 2026, you're going to elect me again.
Well, yeah, everybody has their methods, and a politician, a politician is
he was a master.
Whether they're a natural born peacock or not, they're going to have to be a peacock to keep reminding the public what they're there for.
Yeah.
If you're a counselor and just do your job and only ask one or two pertinent questions and make decisions, somebody else comes along and does a lot of flashbang, and they'll more likely get elected. So obviously, politicians have to have their way of making themselves known to their constituencies that they're doing their job. Yeah. And but in this particular case, we have 6 out of the 8 counselors saying they don't know what they're going to do. Nuuk said, "Yeah, I've learned a lot and I want to carry on." Lori Lococo, obviously, she's a Trojan. She's moving forward, and she's doing her job very, very well. So you'd want her anyway, no matter what happens. You want her somewhere in government.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so Peter Angelo, he's a wait and see kind of guy. Obviously, Cario and Chris Dabrowski, they came in. They were
the last minute ad. They were the fill-ins, right?
Yeah. So they didn't win the elections. They get filled in when other people died or became incapable of doing their job, which was Wayne
the two
Wayne Campbell died.
The two Waynes
became incapable of doing his job.
And basically, we lost the two Waynes, and we got Vince Cario and Chris Dabrowski in their stead.
Yes, so obviously those guys didn't win the election. Of course, you can understand their hesitation. They were wondering, are they going to even be able to win the next election?
And in fact, actually, at the prior to the 22 election, in fact, Vince Cario was making some noise about retiring, but decided not to in the end.
Yeah, but he didn't really put out a whole lot of, like, Vince Cario typically had spent a lot of money on his campaigns. And I think he spent the most money on his campaign and would come 4th or 5th every time, kind of thing, which told you that he really wasn't as that popular as an individual, but he had enough money to make himself enough.
Yeah, he had the biggest sign to the
candidate. Yeah, he didn't put out near as much money the last time, and as an incumbent, he lost his seat.
Yeah.
Now, of course, he may be just fed up with politics. He's been involved in this for a very long time. So he might be just fed up. I've done my duty, a civic duty, and that's enough. I'm out of here. Yeah. So I've done what I should do. Yeah. Dabrowski, he didn't win, and he probably doesn't want to put out the money if he isn't expected to win either. But who else is there? Yeah. So I'll put it out that way.
Actually, the other question about people like Peter Angelo, Cario, and Dabrowski actually saying they're not sure whether they're running is actually a good way to actually say, yeah, remember my name. I'm out here.
But Mike Strange says, well, he hasn't said anything yet. He is saying he's enjoyed his time as a city council, but he won't make a move. Of course, we don't know what his court case is going to come up with, and if he's going to be besmirched or not.
Yeah,
and,
his court case
so
is likely to lose
he
him
has
his
to worry
seat.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, his court case, I think, is likely to lose him his seat. Whether it happens or not before the election, there's going to be, it's a question with him as to whether whether his supporters outweigh his, antagonists.
I think like he's probably one of the worst politicians on city council, and yet he got the most votes of anyone.
Of
And
course,
he's been one of the worst politicians for the last 2 terms, and yet he still has the most votes. So he has a lot of following, and plus you have to look. By now he is probably becoming a better politician after 4 terms in there. He's probably by a process of osmosis, he's probably getting good at what he does as a politician.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he is getting better, but obviously,
well, what we don't want,
he's learned a lot about being a public servant. So,
what we
then
don't
when you go up and find a huge line of candidates coming up in the next election, let's say you get 20 or so candidates, are you going to vote for the devil you know or the devil you don't know? So Mike Strange has a huge following. He may come down a bit in the ranks, but I don't think I think he'll still win an election if he wanted to run.
It's a possibility. And the question here with Strange is how many antagonists he's facing. How many people who how strong the anti-Strange voice becomes. And that's a strange comment.
Yeah. As far as the mayor goes, Jim, nobody's going to touch him.
Well, he could, if he faced opposition from somebody like Lori Lococo, that might be a serious opposition.
Lori Lococo is not prepared to go there right now.
Well, I'm just saying I'm speculating. I'm not making any predictions or anything. I'm just saying.
I think Lori Lococo likes what she's doing. She's a servant of the public, and she's doing a fine job. Knows she's doing a good job. Knows she's appreciated. I think she's happy there. Maybe eventually, I wouldn't mind seeing her in provincial or federal government, but regional for sure. But anyway, that's up to Lori, and we don't know what the governance landscape's going to be.
No, we don't. We don't.
Forward.
And at the moment, I would say to any city councillor or anybody thinking about standing is consider the options and consider what we've got right now. Be aware of what is going on in terms of the potential from the province about changing the whole region, but don't let it stop you standing if that's what you're intending to do.
Well, I don't know. I don't really believe guys like Peter Angelo or Strange saying, they don't know yet. Patel says that's the last thing in her mind. She reminded everybody she put on X amount of motions out there, and she's doing her job. And so she's not looking at election right now. I don't think that's true.
And that's, I don't think that's true, but that's actually the perfect thing to say.
Yeah, it's what I would say.
Exactly.
Because the election's down the road, and I really don't want to start talking about that. Yeah, if I said I'm going to run again, then you would start getting, well, what's going to be your campaign? What do you think is going to be the next thing? And blah, blah, blah. And it'll take you off your stride. You wait until the election actually starts happening and then put up your campaign position. Otherwise, you're going to be nattered about it.
Yep, exactly. And let's be honest about it. The press are going to be on their back from now on anyway.
We'll see. We got like maybe one person in the press will be on their back. But, I mean, official press, of course, the Talking Niagara will be clearly on everyone's back. What is your position?
Well, yeah, of course, but and there's going to be a lot of people who are in that situation, right? Who want to know those answers. But anyway, okay. So moving on, It looks like the housing market, Niagara's housing market, is set to rise in 2026, particularly when you're looking at Fonthill, Lincoln, and Beamsville. They seem to be set to be taking on the biggest rises across Niagara's housing market. But of course, when they do, it also means that the rest of us are not going to be so badly off. And they've been talking about prices falling, but now the prediction is that prices are not expected to fall much, if at all.
Yeah, I was very interested in one thing they said here. See if I can find it. The stability in the national economy. Basically, they said that nationally, of course, they've expected a lot of turmoil in our economy because of tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. That hasn't come to fruition. So they said that the Canadian economy has weathered the storm much, much better than thought.
Yeah.
And that is a contribution to the fact, will contribute to the fact that the houses will not change prices too much. In other words, they're not going to explode in value, but they're not going to go down in value.
Yeah.
But however, they did say that 10% of the stock that they had before Christmas, although things were not selling well, the ones that did sell, 10% of what did sell sold over market.
Yeah.
So that's an indication that the area is still fairly hot. I think there's still a strong draw into this area from people from the GTA.
Yeah, and particularly Fonthill, Lincoln, and Beamsville. These are our hot markets in the Niagara region. But of course, that will also mean, that also basically means that the top two cities, Niagara Falls and St. Catharines, do get buoyed up by that same market.
Yeah, well, we will see. But basically what the article has said, and what was interesting to me about it, is they said the Canadian economy showed more resilience than they thought. So that was a participating factor in the housing market will stabilize. It looks like it won't be super robust, but it will be a pretty good market. Looks a little bit more advantageous to the seller than the buyer, but still things, we are always waiting for that bubble to collapse, and it never has collapsed, has it?
Yeah. And the other thing they're saying about
the real estate market has not bubbled. The bubble has just stopped expanding, let's put it that way, but it hasn't burst.
It never collapsed. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it never collapsed.
And it hasn't collapsed throughout. Yeah, and generally hasn't collapsed throughout Canada at all. We've had the bubble. It's people are saying, well, the house prices are too high, and the market's corrected itself. It's come back down, but then it's stabilized at that new level, and that is actually what we want. What we don't want is prices crashing to 2010 levels.
Yeah, I suppose, but I don't see it really happening. Particularly in this area, you still have the GTA you're drawing from.
Yeah. Well, basically, what they're saying about in this analysis, what they're saying is that they've got strong at the moment. What is being demanded by buyers is family-sized homes, proximity to commuter routes, and attractive small-town amenities. So limited new supply is keeping values stable.
Yeah. So in that niche, in those niche markets, there's going to only be a certain amount of availability at any time anyway.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking for a pretty good house that's, let's say, in a city like Niagara Falls or St. Catharines, you can be assured that if you buy it tomorrow, the price is not going to collapse.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or if you go looking tomorrow, you won't find people overbidding you like they were doing. It cut off that overbidding stuff and that big housing bubble set back the generation now. I have my two youngest sons have houses finally, but I mean, I had my first one when I was 25. I owned townhouses by the time I was 29 years old. I had a couple of townhouses. I owned a cottage by the time I was 30. So I had all kinds of real estate long before my sons even got their very first house.
Yeah, well, you see, I owned my first house when I was 23. When I think back upon it, I had my own house of my own. I shared with somebody to buy my first house, but 2 years later, when I was 25, I'd bought my own place. So he bought me out of my place, and I bought my own apartment.
So there you go. So you can see the big difference that's happening, particularly in Canada, where your expectations was always to buy a house, and for the whole generation that's just passed, that has been
well. There's still
that has been an object that has never been able to happen.
Yeah,
like I can't tell you like my own two sons, my second and third son both got a house, and they were in their 30s when they got it, but a lot of their friends and other will never get a house.
Yeah. Well, also the other thing about this is that the reset is about stabilization, not a collapse of the market. That's one of the things that they've been pointing out here. Prices stabilized after 2 years of softening, and sales are picking back up again. So whilst there is a tight inventory of properties, in fact, actually over the last 2 years, I'd have to say within half a mile of me on the same street and on the next street and on the grid around within half a mile of me, there's probably been a dozen houses sold in the last year.
Yeah, but I don't know. What are we going to do about the homeless? I'll bring it right back to this. Like, what are we going to do about the homeless?
And that is a consistent problem. Yeah.
Like we talk about real estate and stuff like that, and obviously the middle class has taken a giant hit because of real estate prices. This is a North American Western phenomenon, by the way. A lot of it had to do with money coming in from other countries to where they wanted money in a more stable environment, and it inflated housing costs, and that caused a whole domino effect. So, but we still are left with a lot of people, like X amount of people. We read the stats. I forget what the stats were on a previous show. Whereas a certain amount of people have just given up on having a house altogether.
Yeah, we've got record homeless.
Much larger percentage of people in the middle class have given up on having a house altogether than in historic times prior to that.
And we've got record homelessness in the Niagara region. Absolutely, it's easy to talk about the statistics that are produced on this article, but we also got the record homelessness, as you're quite right to point out.
Yeah, and that's not changing. And how do we deal with that?
Well, there's another article as well, which you put up as well. The pool of skilled tradespeople is not keeping pace with the supposed construction boom.
Well, we are now at 8:01 or 8. Is it 8 o'clock? Is it?
Okay, we'll cover that. We'll cover that one tomorrow. Yeah, we'll cover that one tomorrow. But again, it's connected with that, and so new houses on the market is problematic. We've got a lot of people wanting to come here, but we don't have new housing stock, which is probably going to drive the price up a little bit.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. But you're fair. Thank you. Yes, we are over time. And
yes, we are. And I'll bring up Gaza again. Don't forget Gaza. There was a very interesting article. We should get into it. How Israel wants to recognize Somaliland, which is the northwestern part of what we normally call Somalia, which tried to gain its independence back in the 90s. Nobody will recognize it except Ethiopia and Israel. Israel now, and the anticipation. One of the things is that they're trying to make an agreement with Somaliland, so they have a place to dump the Palestinian refugees.
Huh.
They're going to pack them up and dump them there. I don't think that's true, but it's worth talking about. So maybe we'll get onto that tomorrow.
Well, if you can find some articles, I'd be interested to see that. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm going to be on the lookout for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Without further ado, I bid you do not forget Gaza and pray for peace.
Yep. Thank you.